"Ma'am, you need to get the hell out of here. Right now." The words sliced through the hushed, cathedral-like atmosphere of the bank lobby. They were coarse, ugly, and loud. The security guard's voice, a low, gravelly rumble, was filled with an authority he clearly felt he owned. His hand drifted, almost casually, toward the radio on his belt, a silent threat that hung in the perfumed air. Dr. Evelyn Reed stood perfectly, unnervingly still. Her knuckles, wrapped around the handle of a bespoke Italian leather briefcase, were the only things that betrayed a hint of tension. They were white. It was exactly 2:47 p.m. on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon in the heart of downtown Miami. This was the flagship branch of Sterling Trust Bank, a monument of old money and new power, all gleaming marble floors and glittering crystal chandeliers that dripped from the impossibly high ceilings like frozen tears. Have you ever been judged the second you walked into a room? Before you even opened your mouth? Have you ever felt the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on you, dissecting you, dismissing you, deciding who you are without a single piece of evidence? If you have, smash that like button. And if you haven't, you're going to want to stick around and see what happens when you judge the one person you absolutely shouldn't. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because you are about to witness a masterclass in how to dismantle prejudice piece by piece. And trust me, the ending is worth the wait. Evelyn had entered this temple of finance just moments before, her presence a study in quiet power. She wore a tailored, razor-sharp navy blue suit that probably cost more than the teller's monthly salary. Her steps on the polished marble were confident, measured, and purposeful. She moved with the ingrained certainty of a woman who not only belonged in rooms like this, but owned them. She bypassed the long, snaking line of regular customers and approached the polished mahogany counter designated for premium banking, a velvet rope separating the merely wealthy from the truly powerful. The young teller behind the counter, a woman named Tiffany, whose name tag was slightly askew, glanced up. Her face, a canvas of practiced, bored politeness, morphed into a mask of barely concealed irritation. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "The regular customer service line is over there." Tiffany gestured vaguely with a pen toward the less opulent side of the lobby, where the lighting was a little dimmer and the lines were a lot longer. "I'm here for executive banking services," Evelyn stated, her voice a quiet, calm counterpoint to the teller's abrasive tone. Tiffany's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up toward her hairline. "Do you have an appointment?" The question was a challenge, a gatekeeping maneuver designed to put Evelyn in her place. These real-life stories happen far more often than we want to believe. These moments of quiet, insidious prejudice are a reminder of why stories of injustice still carry so much weight, why they still need to be told. Have you ever walked into a place you built, a place you owned, only to be treated like you were trespassing? Just then, the assistant branch manager, Kevin Mitchell, emerged from a back office like a predator sensing an easy meal. He was about 35, with a clean-shaven jaw, a haircut that was trying too hard, and the kind of smug, unearned confidence that comes from a life devoid of any real challenges. His eyes, the color of faded denim, swept over Evelyn, cataloging her, judging her, and dismissing her in a single, insulting glance. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was a booming baritone, pitched just a little too loud, designed to carry across the banking floor. It was a performance. He was drawing attention, marking his territory, establishing his dominance for the audience of other customers. "There's no problem," Evelyn replied, her composure unshaken. "I am simply requesting access to my executive banking services." Kevin crossed his arms over his chest, a classic power pose. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" he asked, his voice now taking on a syrupy, patronizing tone. "This is our premium services area." He enunciated the word premium, as if it were a foreign concept Evelyn couldn't possibly comprehend. He was speaking louder now, ensuring everyone in the lobby could hear him putting this woman, this outsider, in her place. "Do you have an appointment?" A few feet away, a young woman named Chloe Chen sat at a small table, her laptop open in front of her. She was a journalism student, and she had been documenting her day in the life of a Miami intern on Instagram Live for her small group of followers. Her phone, propped up against a water bottle, showed 47 viewers. As Kevin's voice boomed across the lobby, she instinctively, subtly, turned the phone's camera to capture the unfolding drama. Her viewer count began to tick upward. 78, 102, 127. "I don't require an appointment," Evelyn said, her voice still a low, steady murmur that forced Kevin to lean in slightly to hear her, a subtle power play of his own. "Ma'am, we have protocols here." Kevin's voice was now thick with condescension, as if he were explaining a complex concept to a small child. "Premium banking is a very exclusive service. It requires significant, and I mean significant, account minimums. Are you familiar with our requirements?" Evelyn slowly, deliberately, placed her leather briefcase on the marble counter. The soft, authoritative click of the gold-plated latches echoed in the suddenly silent space. Every eye was on her. "Perhaps," she said, her gaze unwavering, "you could explain them to me." The briefcase was a work of art, crafted from deep burgundy leather. In the bottom right corner, a discreet, elegant monogram was embossed in gold leaf. ER, below it, in smaller letters, it read, "Sterling Trust Bank, Board of Directors." But Kevin wasn't looking at the details. He was too caught up in his performance, basking in the attention of the captive audience. He was the hero of this story, protecting the sanctity of the bank from an interloper. "Look, I don't want to make this difficult," Kevin continued, leaning against the counter, trying to appear magnanimous. "But our executive banking starts at a $1 million asset minimum. We also require extensive, and I mean extensive, documentation of all income sources." He paused for dramatic effect, letting his next words land with the force of an accusation. "Legitimate income sources." Chloe's viewer count surged past 347. The comment section of her live stream was now a waterfall of text. "OMG, is this for real? Someone needs to record this properly. This is 2025, not 1955. What is wrong with this guy? Is he seriously implying her money isn't legit?" "Wow." Evelyn glanced down at her phone. The screen glowed with a series of missed calls. General Counsel, Chief of Staff, Board Secretary. The time read 2:52 p.m. "The board meeting is scheduled to begin in exactly 43 minutes, Mr. Mitchell," she said quietly, her voice devoid of any emotion. Kevin frowned, momentarily thrown off his rhythm. "What board meeting? What are you talking about?" "Never mind." Evelyn's voice remained impossibly steady. "About those protocols you were so keen on explaining." "Right." Kevin straightened up, clearly enjoying his moment in the spotlight. He was the expert, the authority. "We need to verify identity, income, and, of course, the legitimate business purpose of your transactions. We have to be very careful. Some people," he said, looking pointedly at Evelyn, "try to use our high-level services for questionable activities." Just then, the regional manager, Brenda Kane, materialized beside Kevin. She was in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a sharper suit, and she had clearly been summoned from the back and briefed on the situation. "What seems to be the issue here?" Brenda's tone was clipped and efficient, suggesting she already had a narrative formed in her mind and was just looking for confirmation. "This woman," Kevin explained, puffing out his chest slightly, is demanding executive services but refuses to provide proper documentation. I was just explaining our security requirements to her." Brenda nodded, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "Of course, we have to be vigilant about suspicious activity. The federal regulators are very strict about the Know Your Customer requirements." She said the last part as if it were a sacred text. Evelyn opened her wallet to retrieve her driver's license. As she did, a flash of metallic black caught the light. An American Express Centurion card, the legendary Black Card, was visible for just a fraction of a second before she plucked out her ID and slid it across the cool marble surface. "Here is my identification," she said. Brenda barely glanced at it. "We'll also need to see proof of funds, current employment verification, and a detailed, written explanation of your business with Sterling Trust." Peeking out from Evelyn's briefcase was the corner of a parking validation ticket. The lettering was small but clear. VIP Executive Garage, Level P1. Only board members and C-suite executives had access to that level. It was another clue, another piece of the puzzle that they were too blinded by their own assumptions to see. Chloe's live stream had hit 891 viewers. The comments were becoming a torrent of outrage. "This is straight-up discrimination, plain and simple. Someone call the news! What bank is this? They need to be exposed." Sterling Trust fail. "I understand you have your procedures," Evelyn said, her patience seemingly infinite. "But I am simply trying to access services at my own bank." "Your bank?" Kevin let out a short, derisive laugh. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this is Sterling Trust Bank. We have been serving the financial elite of Miami for over 75 years. "Yes," Evelyn replied, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "I am intimately aware of its history." Brenda stepped closer, her posture becoming more aggressive. "Look, we're trying to be accommodating here, but you're being deliberately evasive. If you cannot or will not provide the proper documentation, we will have to ask you to leave." Suddenly, the large video screen behind the teller counter flickered to life. The face of District Manager Robert Hayes filled the monitor, patched in from the regional headquarters downtown. He looked annoyed, his tie slightly loosened. "What's the situation down there?" Hayes demanded, his voice tinny and distorted through the speakers. "We have an individual requesting executive services without proper credentials," Brenda reported, her voice now filled with a sense of self-importance. "She's being uncooperative and evasive." Hayes nodded grimly from the screen. His image was 10 feet tall, a digital god passing judgment from on high. "Our security protocols are crystal clear on this. If a person cannot verify their legitimate business need, they need to be removed from the premises, no exceptions." As if on cue, 2 uniformed security guards, who had been watching from a distance, began to move, positioning themselves near the main exits. Their presence shifted the atmosphere from uncomfortable to menacing. An elderly woman, Mrs. Gable, who had been watching the entire exchange with growing alarm from a plush armchair, finally spoke up. "Young man," she called out to Kevin, her voice frail but clear, "perhaps you should check your records before you make such damaging assumptions." Kevin shot her an irritated glance and ignored her completely. His focus was on the stage, on his performance, on demonstrating his unwavering authority in the face of this challenge. "Ma'am," he said, turning his full attention back to Evelyn, "you have exactly 5 minutes to provide the documentation I have requested. If you fail to do so, we will have security escort you from the premises." Evelyn's phone buzzed with an incoming text message. She glanced at it, her expression unreadable. Then her thumbs moved with blurring speed across the screen. She typed a short, cryptic response. Code red. Execute immediately. 5 minutes, she repeated, a thoughtful, almost curious tone in her voice. That should be more than sufficient. What would you do in this situation? How would you feel with everyone staring, with security guards moving in, with your character and your very presence being called into question? Would you scream? Would you break down? Or would you do what she did? Let me know your honest reaction in the comments below, and I promise you, what happens next is a climax you will not believe. Chloe's viewer count rocketed past 1,247. Someone had posted the link to a popular local news forum, and it was spreading like wildfire across social media. The hashtag #StorcherSterling was beginning to trend in the Miami area. The tension in the marble lobby was thick enough to choke on. Other customers had abandoned their own transactions, turning to watch the drama unfold. Some looked deeply uncomfortable, others were clearly entertained, their phones held up discreetly to record their own footage. Through it all, Evelyn stood as still as a statue, a beacon of calm in a sea of escalating hostility. Her briefcase was positioned precisely on the counter. Her breathing was slow and controlled. Her posture was relaxed, yet powerful. She checked her phone again. 2:58 p.m. "Mr. Mitchell," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the tension. "You might want to take a look at your employee handbook. I believe it's page 47, section 3. Kevin's smug expression faltered, a crack in the facade. "What about it?" "The section on customer service standards," Evelyn replied smoothly, "particularly the part about treating all customers, regardless of appearance, with dignity and respect." "I am treating you with respect," Kevin protested, his voice rising in volume, betraying his lie. "Are you?" Evelyn asked simply. The question hung in the air, a devastatingly simple challenge that he had no answer for. The next 15 minutes unfolded with the cold, brutal precision of a carefully orchestrated military coup. At 3:05 p.m., Kevin made his first and last critical error. "Security," he bellowed, pointing a trembling finger at Evelyn. "Please escort this individual to the exit, now." The two guards, their faces impassive, exchanged a brief, uncertain glance. The head of security, Marcus Thompson, was a 23-year veteran of law enforcement and corporate security, with 15 of those years spent at Sterling Trust. He was a man who trusted his gut, and something about this entire situation felt profoundly, deeply wrong. But his training was clear. Support management decisions. He began to move forward. Chloe's Instagram Live had exploded. 2,147 viewers. The comments were scrolling past too fast for anyone to read. "This is insane! Someone find out who she is! Check the briefcase! That's a board member briefcase! Why isn't anyone helping her? This is disgusting!" Mrs. Gable struggled to her feet. At 78, she had been banking with Sterling Trust for over 4 decades. Her late husband had been one of the original members of the board of directors. "Excuse me, she called out, her voice resonating with an authority that came from a lifetime of being listened to. "This is not how we treat people at Sterling Trust. This is not who we are." Brenda Kane spun around, her face a mask of fury. "Ma'am, please do not interfere. This is a security matter." "A security matter?" Mrs. Gable's voice was laced with disbelief and contempt. "That young woman has done nothing but stand there and quietly ask for service at her own bank." But Kevin was too far gone, fully committed to his disastrous performance. The audience of customers, his staff, and his bosses on the video screen fed his conviction. He was the protector of the bank's sacred protocols. "Mrs. Gable, I appreciate your concern, but we have procedures for a reason." He turned back to Evelyn, his face set like stone. "Ma'am, I am going to count to 10. If you have not produced the proper documentation by the time I reach 10, security will physically remove you." Evelyn slowly, gracefully, opened her briefcase. The soft leather hinges made no sound, but every single eye in the lobby tracked the movement. Inside, the contents were organized with military precision: neatly bound documents, a sleek tablet computer, and a series of high-level access cards. She withdrew a single business card and placed it gently on the marble counter. Kevin glanced at it and scoffed dismissively. Anyone can have business cards printed up. The card was thick, expensive cardstock, with embossed lettering. It read, Dr. Evelyn Reed, Chief Executive Officer, Sterling Trust Bank. Brenda leaned over to get a better look. Her face, which had been flushed with righteous authority, instantly went pale. The blood drained from it so quickly she looked like a ghost. That's impossible, she whispered, the words catching in her throat. Is it? Evelyn asked quietly. The time was 3:12 p.m. Chloe's viewer count smashed through 3,591. Someone in the comments section had finally put the pieces together. OMG, guys. Google Dr. Evelyn Reed, Sterling Trust Bank. She's the actual CEO? Holy crap! They are literally kicking out their own boss. This is about to get so real. Record everything. Marcus Thompson, the security chief, took another step closer. Just then, his radio crackled to life with an urgent, piercing tone. All security units, report to the front desk. Priority 1. All units, priority 1. The voice on the other end was sharp, female, and filled with panic. It belonged to Ellen Rodriguez, the chief of staff, calling from the executive floor 47 stories directly above them. Marcus keyed his radio. Thompson here. I'm in the main lobby. The situation is with a... He paused. Is Dr. Reed present in the lobby? Ellen's voice cut through the static, sharp as a razor blade. Marcus truly looked at Evelyn for the very first time. He saw the composed posture, the impossibly expensive suit, the custom briefcase, the flash of the Centurion card he'd glimpsed in her wallet, the VIP parking pass he now remembered seeing. It all clicked into place with a sickening thud. Yes, ma'am, he said into his radio, his own voice now strained. She's here. Stand down, Ellen commanded. Immediately. All security personnel stand down. That is a direct order. Kevin hadn't heard the radio exchange. He was lost in his countdown, lost in his moment of ultimate authority. 7, 6, 5. Robert Hayes' face still filled the video monitor, a grim, disembodied head. Proceed with removal if necessary, he instructed from the safety of his regional office miles away. We cannot appear to be weak on our security protocols. Mrs. Gable moved closer, her hand clutching her pearls. Young man, you are making the most terrible mistake of your entire life. 4, 3. Evelyn withdrew her tablet from the briefcase. With a single tap, the screen lit up. The Sterling Trust Bank executive portal appeared, displaying her authenticated login. E. Reed, CEO. Brenda saw it first. Her knees nearly buckled. Kevin, she whispered, her voice choked with raw panic. Stop. Stop counting. For the love of God, stop. 2. Kevin. Brenda's voice cracked, a shriek of pure terror, but he was too committed. He had gone too far to back down now. His audience was watching. His authority, his very identity at this bank, was on the line. 1. Mr. Mitchell, Evelyn said, her voice as calm as a frozen lake. I strongly suggest you look at this screen. The tablet displayed her executive dashboard, real-time bank performance metrics, upcoming board meeting schedules, sensitive regulatory compliance reports. Her fully authenticated CEO access credentials were displayed in the top left corner, clear as day. The lobby fell into a deafening silence. The only sounds were the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant symphony of traffic on Biscayne Boulevard. Kevin stared at the screen. His face cycled through a rapid, painful series of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, dawning recognition, and finally, abject, soul-crushing horror. Chloe's live stream had crested 4,156 viewers. The comments were a blur of pure pandemonium. "She is the CEO! She is the CEO! They are so beyond fired! This is the best thing I have ever seen on the internet. Someone screen record this for the lawsuit." At 3:18 p.m., as if summoned by the climax of the drama, 3 people in dark, severe business suits entered through the main glass doors. They moved with the quiet, predatory efficiency of a team of lawyers arriving at a crime scene. Ellen Rodriguez, the chief of staff, led the group. Flanking her were General Counsel Maria Santos and Compliance Director James Wright. The cavalry had arrived. Marcus Thompson immediately recognized Ellen. His hand instinctively moved to his radio, but she gave him a slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head. This situation was far beyond radio protocol now. "Dr. Reed," Ellen said, her voice clear and carrying across the vast marble expanse. "I apologize for the delay. We've moved the board meeting to the main executive conference room to accommodate." Kevin opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. No words came out. He just made a small, choking sound. Brenda Kane had gone completely, shockingly white. She had worked for Sterling Trust for 12 long years. She knew exactly who Ellen Rodriguez was, and she knew that Ellen only appeared in person for the most catastrophic of situations. There's been a misunderstanding," Brenda began, her voice a weak, trembling whisper. "Has there?" Ellen's voice could have cut diamond. Mrs. Gable walked over to Evelyn, her face a mixture of relief and sorrow. "My dear, I am so profoundly sorry. This is not the Sterling Trust I have known for 40 years. "Thank you, Mrs. Gable," Evelyn replied, her voice filled with genuine warmth. "Your words and your courage to speak up mean more than you can possibly know." The elderly woman then looked directly at Kevin, her eyes filled not with anger, but with a deep, profound disappointment. "Young man, my late husband helped to found this bank on the principle of service to the community. He is most likely spinning in his grave right now." Chloe's viewer count had surged past 5,243. Local news outlets, alerted by social media monitoring software, were beginning to pick up the story. 3 different Twitter accounts with "journalist" in their bios had already messaged Chloe, requesting permission to use her footage. Robert Hayes was still on the video monitor, but his confident, authoritative demeanor had completely evaporated. He looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Someone in his office had clearly just briefed him on exactly who he had ordered to be removed. "Dr. Reed," his voice crackled through the speakers, thin and reedy. There appears to have been a severe communication breakdown." Evelyn looked directly up at the camera, at the giant, terrified face of her district manager. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice cold as ice, "we will be discussing communication breakdowns in very, very specific detail, very soon." The time was 3:23 p.m. The board meeting had been scheduled for 3:30, but Evelyn Reed had a different timeline in mind now. She typed a quick message on her tablet. "Board meeting postponed to 4 p.m. Emergency session. Full attendance is mandatory." Ellen nodded and immediately began making calls. James Wright, the compliance director, was already at work, his fingers flying across his own tablet. He was documenting everything: timestamps, witness names, potential regulatory implications, the Fair Housing Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Community Reinvestment Act, all had specific, ironclad provisions about discriminatory treatment in banking. The FDIC took such violations with deadly seriousness. "Mr. Mitchell," Evelyn said finally, her voice pulling him from his horrified trance, "you mentioned protocols. Let's discuss those protocols. In detail. All of them." Kevin Mitchell's career at Sterling Trust Bank had exactly 37 minutes of life left, though he was far too terrified to know it yet. At 3:25 p.m., Dr. Evelyn Reed opened her briefcase completely, revealing its contents to the silent, watching lobby. The perfectly organized interior told a story that Kevin Mitchell was only just beginning to comprehend. There were board meeting agendas, sensitive regulatory correspondence, executive performance reports, and a lanyard with her CEO identification badge, lying pristine and arranged with military precision. She picked up the badge and clipped it to the lapel of her suit jacket. The Sterling Trust logo gleamed under the crystal chandeliers. Below it, in clear, bold lettering, were the words, Dr. Evelyn Reed, Chief Executive Officer. Chloe's Instagram Live had reached a staggering 6,892 viewers. The comment stream had become a river of pure, unadulterated shock. No freaking way. She's been the CEO this whole time? They literally just tried to have their own boss arrested. This is going viral. For sure. Kevin stared at the badge. His brain was refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. It was a nightmare. CEOs didn't just walk into branch lobbies unannounced. They had assistants, security details, advanced teams to smooth the way. That's impossible, he stammered, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Is it? Evelyn asked again. Her voice was still calm, but there was a core of steel beneath the silk. Ellen Rodriguez approached the small, tense group. Dr. Reed, the executive team is assembling upstairs. Legal is already reviewing the surveillance footage from the past 30 minutes. Footage? Brenda's voice was barely a whisper. She looked as if she might faint. James Wright, the compliance director, looked up from his tablet without a flicker of emotion. All Sterling Trust locations are equipped with continuous, high-definition video surveillance. Everything that has happened in this lobby, including every word that was spoken, has been recorded with full audio. The last vestiges of color drained from Kevin's face. He looked physically ill. Maria Santos, the general counsel, joined the conversation, her expression grim. We also have multiple sources of social media documentation, several willing witness statements, and time-stamped digital evidence of discriminatory treatment. She looked directly at Kevin and Brenda, her eyes cold and clinical. The Fair Housing Act of 1968, as amended, specifically prohibits discrimination in banking services based on race, color, religion, or national origin. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act extends these protections even further. You are both in violation of federal law. Mrs. Gable, who had remained nearby, a silent witness to history, shook her head slowly. In my 40 years with this bank, I have never ever seen anything so disgraceful. Marcus Thompson, the head of security, approached Evelyn directly, his face etched with shame. Dr. Reed, on behalf of my team, I want to apologize. If I had recognized you immediately. Mr. Thompson, Evelyn interrupted him, her tone gentle but firm. You were following the instructions of your supervisors. This incident isn't about recognition. It's about how we treat all our customers, especially the ones we don't recognize. Robert Hayes's voice crackled again through the video monitor speakers, desperate now. Dr. Reed, there has clearly been a terrible misunderstanding. Perhaps this is a matter we could handle internally, away from the public eye. Mr. Hayes, Evelyn's voice cut through his pathetic attempt at damage control like a surgeon's scalpel. We will be discussing your central role in this situation. I suggest you spend the next few minutes reviewing the video footage of your own instructions to proceed with removal if necessary. The line from the regional office went silent. Kevin finally found his voice, a weak, pleading croak. I had no idea, ma'am. Dr. Reed, I swear I was just following our protocols. No, Mr. Mitchell, Evelyn corrected him, her tone still measured, but her words carrying the devastating precision of a sniper's bullet. You weren't following protocols. You were following assumptions. You were following your own prejudice. Tell me, what specific protocol requires you to publicly question a customer's legitimate business need based on their appearance. Kevin opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. There was no protocol for what he had done. What policy, she continued, relentless, allows you to demand proof of legitimate income sources from someone requesting basic, available banking services? Silence. Which section of the employee handbook authorizes you to speak loudly and condescendingly about a customer's financial standing in front of other patrons? Brenda tried to intervene, to save herself. Dr. Reed, we were only trying to protect the bank's interests. Were you? Evelyn turned her full, formidable attention to the regional manager. Ms. Kane, you have been with Sterling Trust for 12 years. In all that time, how many white male customers have you required to prove their income was legitimate before allowing them to open a premium account? Brenda's silence was a confession. The tablet in Evelyn's hands chimed softly with an incoming data transfer. Mr. Wright, she said, not taking her eyes off Brenda. What do our internal discrimination complaint statistics show for the past 6 months? James Wright consulted his own device. His voice was flat, emotionless, reciting the data of their damnation. Customer complaints citing discriminatory treatment have increased by 47% compared to the same period last year. We currently have 3 pending lawsuits alleging racial discrimination in our lending practices, with combined damages sought of $2.3 million. The numbers landed in the silent room like physical blows. And our Community Reinvestment Act rating? Evelyn continued, her voice pressing on. Under formal review by the FDIC, Wright replied. They have already noted significant areas of concern regarding equitable service delivery to all segments of the community. Chloe's viewer count had crossed 8,000. Someone had shared the stream link on Twitter, where Funcer Sterling Trust Fail was now trending nationally. Local news vans were probably already on their way. Ellen Rodriguez's phone was buzzing incessantly with urgent messages from their PR firm. Dr. Reed, Channel 7 News is on the line requesting an official statement. The Miami Herald wants an interview. Our social media mentions are spiking across all platforms and are overwhelmingly negative. At 3:32 p.m., Evelyn Reed made a decision that would not just save her bank, but would reshape its future. Ms. Rodriguez, please contact all members of the board. The emergency session is confirmed for 4:15 p.m. Full attendance is required, in person or via secure video link. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the marble lobby that had, in the space of less than an hour, become a crime scene. And contact our crisis management team. Tell them we have a Category 5 situation. We're going to need them. She turned to Maria Santos, the general counsel. What is our total legal exposure here? Significant, the lawyer replied without hesitation. We're facing federal civil rights violations, potential class action liability, and severe regulatory sanctions. The FDIC could impose penalties ranging from crippling fines to operational restrictions, or even suspension of our banking charter. The stock market wouldn't open until the next morning, but after-hours trading would begin soon. Sterling Trust's share price was about to plummet off a cliff. Mr. Thompson, Evelyn addressed the security chief, please escort Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Kane to the executive floor. They will be participating in the board meeting. Kevin's legs nearly gave out from under him. The board meeting? Yes, Mr. Mitchell, Evelyn said, reading his terrified expression. You wanted to discuss protocols. We're going to discuss them, in exhaustive detail. All of them. Mrs. Gable approached Evelyn one final time, placing a gentle, trembling hand on her arm. My dear, I have seen a lot of changes in my long years, but watching you handle this ugly situation with such strength and grace, your parents raised you right. Thank you, Mrs. Roosevelt. That means everything to me. The elderly woman looked at Kevin with a deep, sad disappointment. Young man, you had a chance today to serve someone truly remarkable. Instead, you chose to judge her. That isn't just poor customer service, it's a profound poverty of character. At 3:37 p.m., Chloe ended her Instagram Live. Her final viewer count was 9,847. The footage had already been screen recorded by hundreds of viewers and was spreading like a virus across TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Before leaving, she approached Evelyn, her face a mixture of awe and apology. "Ma'am, Dr. Reed, I just want to say, what I saw here today was so wrong. But watching you handle it, it was inspiring." "Thank you for bearing witness," Evelyn replied, her expression softening. "Sometimes that's the most powerful thing any of us can do." As the lobby began to clear, Evelyn stood alone for a moment in the very spot where her leadership, her identity, and her dignity had been so publicly questioned. The marble floors reflected the cold, glittering light of the crystal chandeliers. The large brass Sterling Trust logo on the wall seemed to mock her, proclaiming 75 years of service to the community. Ellen Rodriguez approached. "Dr. Reed, the executive elevators are waiting." In a moment of pure, unscripted leadership, Evelyn walked over to the customer service area, where Jessica, the young teller who had started the whole ordeal, stood frozen behind her window, her face stained with tears. "Jessica," she said gently. The young woman looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "Dr. Reed, I am so sorry. I should have recognized you. I should have—" "Jessica," Evelyn interrupted her softly. "You did nothing wrong. You directed me to what you believed was the appropriate service area based on your training. That isn't discrimination. That is a failure of our process." Evelyn paused, her gaze sweeping over the entire lobby. "But everything that happened after that is what we are going to change forever." At 3:42 p.m., Dr. Evelyn Reed stepped into the executive elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing her in a cocoon of polished steel and quiet determination. The board meeting would begin in 18 minutes. But the real reckoning for Sterling Trust Bank was just beginning. The 47th floor of the Sterling Trust Tower was buzzing with the controlled, frantic chaos of a corporate crisis in full swing. At 3:55 p.m., the executive conference room, a space that overlooked the sparkling expanse of Biscayne Bay, was filled with the most powerful people in Miami banking. 12 board members took their seats around a colossal, polished mahogany table. Teams of lawyers occupied the side chairs, their laptops open, their faces grim. The HR director, Margaret Foster, sat beside Chief Compliance Officer James Wright, both of them reviewing documents with a chilling efficiency. Dr. Evelyn Reed entered at exactly 4:00 p.m. She was followed by Kevin Mitchell and Brenda Kane, who looked like they were walking to their own executions. Marcus Thompson had escorted them upstairs in what was surely the most uncomfortable elevator ride of their lives. Neither of them had spoken a single word. Board Chairman David Sterling, a 68-year-old titan of the industry who had served Sterling Trust for 32 years, called the emergency session to order. He had never in his long career convened a meeting under circumstances this dire. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying the heavy weight of impending catastrophe. "We are here today to address a serious and deeply disturbing incident that occurred in our flagship branch approximately 1 hour ago. Dr. Reed will brief us on the situation." Evelyn activated the room's massive presentation system. The first slide that appeared on the 10-foot screen was not a mission statement or a financial report. It was a live feed of real-time social media analytics. Instagram Live viewers, 9,247, peak concurrent. Twitter mentions of Cork Sterling, trust fail, 47,000 plus in under 2 hours. Facebook shares of incident footage, 12,000 and climbing. YouTube uploads of screen recordings, 23 on different channels. The numbers speak for themselves. she began, her voice calm and steady. What began as a failure in customer service has metastasized into a public relations nightmare and a significant legal liability. Catherine Liu, a board member who headed the Risk Management Committee, leaned forward, her face taut with concern. What exactly happened? The main screen switched from the social media data to the crisp, clear security footage from the bank lobby. Timestamp: 2:47 p.m. The room watched in stunned, horrified silence as the entire, ugly event unfolded. They saw Evelyn's unshakable calm, Kevin's escalating aggression, Brenda's supportive discrimination, and the exact moment when the phones of other customers began to come out and record. When the footage ended, the conference room remained utterly silent for a full 30 seconds. "Jesus Christ," whispered board member Robert Chen, his face pale. "The legal implications are severe," Maria Santos, the general counsel, began her grim analysis. "We have clear, undeniable, multi-angle documentation of discriminatory treatment in violation of multiple federal statutes." She displayed a new slide, a comprehensive legal breakdown that made several board members physically flinch. Federal violations: Fair Housing Act of 1968, as amended, Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974, Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. Potential penalties: FDIC fines, $50,000 to $500,000 per violation. Civil lawsuits, unlimited damages, regulatory sanctions, operating restrictions or license suspension. Current financial exposure: existing discrimination lawsuits, $2,300,000 in claimed damages. New potential class action, $15, $50 million, estimated exposure. Crisis management costs, $300,000, $400,000 for immediate response. Stock price, impact, projected 8 to 12% decline at market open. Jennifer Walsh, who chaired the audit committee, turned her icy gaze directly on Kevin. "Mr. Mitchell, can you please attempt to explain your actions?" Kevin stood up, his body trembling. His arrogant confidence had evaporated, leaving behind a pathetic, terrified shell of a man. I thought I was following protocol," he stammered. "We're supposed to verify customers, prevent suspicious activity." "And what, precisely," Walsh pressed, her voice like chipping ice, "made Dr. Reed's presence suspicious?" She didn't look like—" Kevin's voice trailed off as he realized the depth of the hole he had just dug for himself. "Didn't look like what, Mr. Mitchell?" Silence. A damning, complete silence. Brenda Kane tried to come to his defense, a desperate attempt to save her own skin. "We deal with fraud attempts on a regular basis. We have to be careful about people claiming they need executive services." "Ms. Kane," interrupted General Counsel Santos, "in your 12 years with Sterling Trust, how many actual fraud attempts have you personally encountered that involved someone falsely claiming to be a bank executive?" None, but—" "And how many times," Santos continued mercilessly, "have you demanded that a white male customer prove his income was legitimate before providing him with standard banking services?" Brenda's face flushed a deep, ugly red. "That's not— I don't think—" "The answer is 0, Miss Kane," Santos stated flatly. "We have your complete service record. You have never once, in 12 years, questioned the legitimacy of a white customer's income source." The data was devastating. James Wright then presented a statistical analysis that was even more damning. The screen showed charts and graphs detailing customer service patterns at the flagship branch over the past year. Average service time, white customers. 4. 2 minutes, average service time, black customers. 12.7 minutes, requests for additional documentation, white customers. 4.7% of transactions, requests for additional documentation, black customers. 38.2% of transactions. Security called for disruptive behavior. All races. 11 incidents in 12 months. Security called for suspicious activity. Black customers. 67 incidents in 12 months. These numbers represent systemic, institutionalized discriminatory practices, Wright concluded, his voice grim. Not isolated incidents. Thomas Anderson, a board member and a former federal prosecutor, leaned back in his chair, his expression hard as granite. This isn't just about today's incident. This is about a rotten, deeply ingrained institutional culture. Chairman Sterling finally addressed the room, his voice heavy. The question before this board is simple. How do we respond? Evelyn stood and walked to the presentation screen. We have 3 options, she began, her voice commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Each has vastly different consequences. Option 1, minimize and cover. We issue a quiet apology. We handle the discipline internally. We offer a private settlement to any potential lawsuits. We hope the social media attention fades away and continue our current practices with only minor, superficial adjustments. This option might protect the short-term stock price, but I guarantee you it ensures long-term catastrophe. The federal regulators are already reviewing our CRA compliance. Minimizing this incident would confirm their worst suspicions and invite a full-scale federal investigation. She paused, letting the severity of that sink in. Option 2. Partial reform. We publicly terminate the involved employees. We implement some basic, off-the-shelf sensitivity training. We have regional management issue a public apology and make some minor policy adjustments. This option satisfies the immediate public pressure, but it does absolutely nothing to address the systemic issues. We'd be sitting in this exact same room, facing this exact same crisis, within a matter of months. She took a deep breath. Option 3. Complete transformation. We initiate a comprehensive top-to-bottom policy overhaul. We implement a new industry-leading bias awareness and de-escalation training program for every single employee. We launch a major community investment initiative targeted at the communities we have failed. We hire a third-party compliance firm to monitor our progress and hold us publicly accountable. We tie executive compensation directly to diversity, inclusion, and equitable service metrics. This option, Evelyn admitted, is expensive, disruptive, and difficult. But it is the only path to legitimate, long-term stability and restoring the integrity of this institution. Lisa Martinez, a board member with a background in community banking, raised her hand. What are the financial implications of Option 3? CFO Ronald Park, who had been furiously crunching numbers, consulted his projections. Initial implementation costs would be approximately $2.4 million over 6 months. The ongoing compliance program would be about $800,000 annually, and a community investment fund would require a $5 million initial commitment. Now, compare that to our current legal exposure, Evelyn said, her voice cutting in. We are looking at potential damages of $50 million or more if this incident becomes a class action lawsuit. She advanced to the next slide, which showed the outcomes of similar cases at other banks. Wells Fargo discrimination settlement, 2012. $175 million. Bank of America lending bias penalty, 2011. $335 million. Trustmark National Bank fair lending violation, 2015. $5 million. We can pay for reform now, she concluded, or we can pay for lawsuits later. The choice is ours. Robert Hayes, the regional manager, appeared on the video conference screen, his face pale and drawn. Mr. Hayes, Chairman Sterling addressed him coldly. You instructed branch personnel to proceed with removing Dr. Reed from the premises. Explain yourself. Hayes shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I was supporting our managers on the ground based on their assessment of the situation. I didn't have all the complete information. You had a live video feed, Robert, Evelyn interrupted, her voice sharp. You could see exactly what was happening. You chose to escalate rather than de-escalate." The room fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. The discrimination wasn't just at the branch level. It was actively supported by regional management. Margaret Foster, the HR director, presented her official recommendations. Immediate terminations. Kevin Mitchell. Gross discriminatory conduct. Violation of customer service standards. Brenda Kane. Supporting discriminatory conduct. Gross failure of management oversight. Robert Hayes. Actively escalating a discriminatory incident. Dereliction of duty. Disciplinary actions. Marcus Thompson. Official security warning for delayed recognition of a C-suite executive. Remedial de-escalation training required. No further disciplinary action. Board member Catherine Liu asked the critical question. "Dr. Reed, what is your personal recommendation?" Evelyn looked around the table at the faces of Sterling Trust's leadership. Some looked concerned, others were calculating financial risk, but a few looked genuinely, deeply ashamed. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice resonating with moral authority, "we are not just making a business decision today. We are defining who Sterling Trust Bank will be for the next 75 years. She paused, letting the weight of that history settle upon the room. "I recommend option 3, complete, total, and transparent transformation. We will become the undisputed industry leader in equitable banking, or we will accept that discrimination is part of our business model. There is no middle ground." The vote was unanimous, 12-0 in favor of comprehensive reform. At 5:23 p.m., Kevin Mitchell's employment with Sterling Trust Bank officially, unceremoniously ended. Brenda Kane and Robert Hayes followed within the hour. But for Dr. Evelyn Reed, the real work was just beginning. Within 24 hours of that fateful board meeting, Sterling Trust Bank had transformed from a symbol of institutional prejudice into a beacon of corporate leadership. The speed and decisiveness of the change were breathtaking, reflecting both the severity of the crisis and the organization's newfound capacity for radical action under its CEO. Dr. Evelyn Reed stood in the same marble lobby where, just a day before, she had been threatened with removal. It was 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and the flagship branch was buzzing with a new, purposeful energy. The first change was immediately visible. A diverse team of compliance officers and training specialists moved throughout the customer service area, observing interactions and offering real-time coaching. Each wore a discreet badge that read, "Customer Service Advocate." Margaret Foster, the HR director, addressed the assembled branch staff, her tone leaving no room for misunderstanding. Every single Sterling Trust employee, from the mailroom to the boardroom, will complete 40 hours of intensive bias awareness and de-escalation training within the next 30 days. This is not a punishment. This is our new standard of professional development. At midnight, the Sterling Equity app had launched. It was an anonymous reporting system that allowed both customers and employees to document and report instances of discriminatory or inequitable treatment in real time. Every report was routed directly to Dr. Reed's office, the legal department, and the new third-party compliance monitor. "Transparency builds trust," explained James Wright, showing the app's features to a crowd of gathered journalists. "Now our customers can report their concerns to us immediately, and we can respond within hours, not months." Chloe Chen had returned to the bank, but this time she was not an accidental witness. She was an invited guest. Local and national media outlets were eager for her first-hand account of Tuesday's events. "What impressed me most," she told a Channel 7 news reporter, her voice confident, "wasn't just how Dr. Reed handled the discrimination against her personally. It was how she immediately pivoted and turned a disgusting crisis into a catalyst for positive, systemic change." That's real leadership. The Community Investment Fund had already grown far beyond the initial $5 million commitment. After the board meeting, several board members had quietly contributed personal funds, bringing the total to over $12 million earmarked for low-interest loans for minority-owned businesses and financial literacy programs in underserved communities. Mrs. Gable sat in the executive customer area, having a personal meeting with Evelyn. At 78, she had witnessed decades of social change, but she had rarely seen a powerful institution transform itself so rapidly and so completely. "My dear," she said, her eyes shining, "in 40 years of banking here, I have never been prouder to be a Sterling Trust customer. You have honored your name and your position more beautifully than I can say." The statistical changes were already measurable and astounding. James Wright presented the morning's data, comparing Tuesday's performance metrics with Wednesday's. Average customer service time, equalized at 5.1 minutes across all demographic groups. Additional documentation requests, down 73% for all customers. Customer satisfaction scores, up 89% from the previous week's average. Employee confidence ratings, up 45% following the emergency all-hands meeting and new training announcements. The new policies, now called the Sterling Trust Equity Standards, went far beyond federal requirements. They included quarterly bias audits by independent third parties, publicly reported customer service time metrics, and executive compensation directly tied to achieving diversity and inclusion goals. Kevin Mitchell had spent Tuesday night in his apartment, watching with a sick feeling in his stomach as news coverage of his termination played on a loop. Local stations had licensed Chloe's Instagram footage, and his angry, condescending face was being analyzed on multiple platforms as the poster child for corporate prejudice. Wednesday morning brought an unexpected phone call from Dr. Reed's office. "Mr. Mitchell," Ellen Rodriguez's voice was professional but not unkind. "Dr. Reed would like to offer you an opportunity for personal growth." The opportunity was enrollment in a comprehensive 6-month diversity and bias education program, fully funded by Sterling Trust. It included intensive training, one-on-one counseling, and a community service requirement, with guaranteed job placement assistance at a nonprofit organization upon successful completion. "This isn't about punishment, Kevin," Evelyn explained when they met in her office that afternoon. "It's about transformation. You have a choice. You can learn from this horrific experience, or you can allow it to define you negatively for the rest of your life." Humbled and broken, Kevin accepted the program. His first assignment was volunteering at a financial literacy workshop in one of Miami's poorest neighborhoods, helping families understand banking services without judgment or assumption. Brenda Kane received a similar offer, though her pride and anger led her to decline it. Her 12-year career at Sterling Trust ended with a standard termination package and a public record that would follow her for years. Robert Hayes faced the harshest professional consequences. His senior regional position was eliminated, and his behavior during the crisis became a what not to do case study in management training programs across the entire banking industry. The FDIC investigation concluded within an unprecedented 2 weeks. Instead of levying penalties, the agency issued a public commendation for Sterling Trust's rapid, transparent, and comprehensive reforms. Their Community Reinvestment Act rating improved from needs improvement to satisfactory within 60 days. The stock price impact was surprisingly minimal. The initial after-hours trading showed a 3.2% decline, but by Friday morning, as investors recognized the effectiveness of the crisis management and the long-term value of the reforms, the shares had fully recovered and even gained 1.7%. Jessica, the young teller, flourished under the new system. Her natural empathy, now properly channeled through training and supported by new policies, made her the branch's top-rated customer service representative. Marcus Thompson, the security chief, worked with Dr. Reed to implement new security protocols that emphasized de-escalation and cultural sensitivity. His 23 years of experience, combined with this enhanced training, made him a model for security professionals throughout the industry. The 3 pending discrimination lawsuits were settled within 6 weeks. The plaintiffs praised Sterling Trust's transformative response, and their attorneys publicly commended the organization's sincere commitment to change. Dr. Reed established monthly community forum events where any customer could come and discuss their banking experiences directly with executive leadership. The first session drew over 200 attendees, including many who had witnessed Tuesday's events online or in person. "Change doesn't happen in boardrooms," she told the gathered community members. "It happens in lobbies. It happens in the daily human commitment to treating every single person with dignity, regardless of our assumptions or their appearance." The Sterling transformation became a Harvard Business School case study. Within 3 months, Dr. Reed was invited to speak at banking industry conferences across the nation, sharing her model for rapid, authentic organizational change. But the most meaningful change was quieter, more personal. It was in the thousands of daily interactions where customers entered the marble lobby and received respectful, equitable, and efficient service, regardless of their race, their accent, or their perceived wealth. The lobby where discrimination had once flourished had become a living symbol of institutional transformation. 6 months later, Dr. Evelyn Reed stood before the American Bankers Association's annual conference in Miami. The grand ballroom held over 3,000 banking executives from across the nation. Her presentation title was simple: From Crisis to Culture, Leading Institutional Change in Real Time. The Sterling Trust transformation had become legendary in banking circles, not just for its speed, but for its profound authenticity. Other major institutions were already implementing similar programs, creating a ripple effect of positive change across the entire financial industry. "Leadership isn't about avoiding mistakes," she told the assembled executives, her voice ringing with conviction. "It's about how we respond when our core values are tested in the public square." The statistics she presented spoke volumes. Sterling Trust 6-month results. Customer satisfaction, up 127% across all demographic groups. New account openings increased 89% in underserved communities. Employee retention improved 76% following the culture change. Community investment, $28 million deployed in minority business loans. Industry recognition, awarded Banking Excellence in Diversity by 3 separate professional organizations. Chloe Chen had parlayed her accidental citizen journalism into a burgeoning career as a social justice reporter. Her Instagram account, now followed by over 847,000 people, continued to highlight stories of both discrimination and positive change. She had interviewed Dr. Reed multiple times, and she always ended with the same question: "What would you tell someone who is facing discrimination today?" Evelyn's answer was always the same: document everything, find your voice, and remember that silence enables injustice, but speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes, has the power to create monumental change. Mrs. Gable had become Sterling Trust's unofficial community ambassador. At 79, she attended every community forum, sharing the story of the bank's transformation with her neighbors and friends. "I've seen a lot of history in my day," she often said, "but watching one person's courage change an entire institution from the inside out, well, that's something truly special." Bradley Mitchell completed his diversity education program and found fulfilling employment with a community development organization. His humiliating experience at Sterling Trust had become the unlikely catalyst for profound personal growth. "I learned that good intentions don't excuse harmful actions," he said in a video testimonial for the program. "Dr. Reed showed me that true leadership means acknowledging your mistakes and then working tirelessly to prevent others from ever making them." The transformation extended far beyond Sterling Trust. Within a year, federal banking regulators had adopted Sterling's bias audit standards as a new industry best practice. 20 other major banks had implemented similar equity apps, and the National Banking Association had developed new mandatory diversity training requirements for all member institutions. But perhaps the most significant change of all was immeasurable. It was found in the daily, unseen interactions between banking professionals and the customers who, in the past, might have been judged, dismissed, or discriminated against. These touching stories of transformation are a powerful reminder of why real-life stories of courage and leadership matter so much. They create the change we so desperately need in our communities. Every single day, someone walks into a business, a school, or an organization where they might not be welcomed. And every single day, someone in a position of power has the choice to either perpetuate that bias or to challenge it. Dr. Reed's story proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that one person's response to injustice can transform entire institutions. So I ask you, what injustices have you witnessed? What discrimination have you experienced? Share your stories in the comments below. Your voice matters. Your experience can inspire change in someone else. Please subscribe for more life stories that prove that justice, intelligence, and courage can always overcome prejudice and ignorance. Share this video with someone who needs to see that positive change is not just possible, it's necessary. Because together, we can create a world where every single person receives the dignity and respect they inherently deserve.